look up. Yeah, that was a clown ramp contest. Really.
Clown ramp. Looks like a clown ramp.
The clown. And they had just started doing the Masters vert series. And there was a brief window before Stevie Cab and that whole generation got old enough to be in the Masters series. See, I was slightly older than those guys. After I was learned to skate vert in Fort Worth, I got hooked up with the Dallas guys. And I remember when Jeff Phillips was just a little grommet at the park. And I was a few years older and I was already skating vert, and they were just these little groms, you know. But they just rocketed, you know, Dan Wilkes and Jeff Phillips and Craig Johnson. They had the blue ramp and the clown ramp in Dallas, and all they were doing is skating. But I was a few years older, so I was kind of strangely positioned. Those guys became friends of mine. Jeff Phillips used to say I was the one who taught him to skate, which was not true. But when they were little grommets, they like really looked up to me because I was pretty far along vert skating. At one of the parks, somebody took a picture of me doing a grind in a pool, and somebody, I don't know who it was, and I wish I would have taken a picture, they did a gigantic mural on the whole side of the pro shop. It was huge of that picture.
Wow. And
I showed up at the park one day and I was like, what the hell, that's me. So they were these little grommets, but then they you know, I was around to see Jeff Phillips become Jeff Phillips. And I skated with him on the clown ramp and the blue ramp at Donnell Distributors. And Jeff, you know, I was there. I would be there for 2 or 3 or 4 hours of a 12, 14, 16-hour session that Jeff did every day. And we would call him the Marathon Man because he would skate forever.
Really?
And, you know, I mean, he was legendary. There was a big contest in Southern California, and the story was he didn't bail once the entire week. Like, not even bail, like literally never came off his board. He was a machine, and I don't know if that's true, but I can tell you it was nearly true. And also the story was that in the finals he skated on acid, too.
Oh, really?
And I believe that.
Wow.
But he was an absolute machine. He was unbelievable. And when I was still going to college in Texas, see, that's the thing. I went to college and got 2 college degrees, and I was into climbing, mountaineering. I was getting into skiing and whitewater kayaking.
You were teaching back then.
So
weren't you?
no, I was working on a master's degree. That was in Texas.
Okay.
And I was making trips to a giant pipe outside of Amarillo with Craig Johnson and man, stories there. Going through West Texas in around about 1980, right about 1980 with Craig Johnson with massive dreads and going into these, you know, a little convenience store or gas station with Craig and having the locals just completely freak out. But there was that giant pipe that got covered in magazines. It was 23 feet in diameter and like 130 yards long, glass smooth. It's at a dam outside of Amarillo.
Wow. So
we were doing trips up there, but you know, I was doing all this other stuff and all they were doing is skating. And I just watched them, you know, become that first generation of pros, and watched Jeff, you know, on the blue ramp outside of Donnell, probably along very early 80s, just watching Jeff like a machine.
Really?
Ollie, you know, face high ollies.
Wow.
You know, it was extraordinary. And Craig, you know, watching Craig, he was my favorite vert skater of all time. Craig Johnson was.
He had an interesting style.
Unbelievable.
Who's the other one? John Gibson.
Yeah.
They both skated for Zorlak or something like that.
Yeah, Jeff Newton. I was around with those guys, and when all the first generation of parks got built, we were all in the parks together, and one of the guys came to us about doing a pool because. Awesome.
Ray Johnson there in the bottom.
Yeah. Yeah, before he got huge giant hair, and he was young then, really young.
Is that you on the other side?
That's me there.
Over here.
That's me, yeah.
Wow. That's great.
1977.
You skated that ramp that you built?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's, early on, after, when it was new. Here's how, early on. And see, this is what ramps, when I built this is all anybody was doing, were these angled ramps. That's probably 1975 or 6, But all anybody was doing they hadn't figured out how to bend on curved form yet.
Where was that park there on top?
That was in Fort Worth, Texas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I'm not sure who this is. It's looking a little like Stevie Cab, isn't it? But I don't know. I don't know if any of those guys were at that contest. I think that might have been just Southwest. And skate with him on wherever the ramps were. And that's where he started telling people I taught him to skate. And so I couldn't put a year on this. This was probably, oh God, I couldn't even pick a year. But he was doing pretty well when I would travel home, and his park was doing okay. Skate the park with him, watch him. It was astounding. He was connecting all the bowls and the vert ramp with monstrous ollies.
Really?
So he would do these gigantic ollie transfers.
Oh, wow.
From the different bowls to different ramps. And so his park was going well, and it was okay. But I watched things go downhill with him. The park was no longer making money. His shoulder had gotten so bad, and he wouldn't stop doing layback grinds. He was addicted to these just really stretched out, incredible high-speed layback grinds. And he couldn't stop doing them, but his shoulder had gotten so bad that he would go up to do layback grind and he would dislocate his shoulder. And so he had some injuries. Vert skating, of course, stopped being a thing. And all he had was skating. That was it.
Mm.
So, and then, nothing was happening for him. I know his girlfriend left him. The park wasn't making money. He just didn't see any future.
Hmm.
It's one of those things where he was alone. It was holiday season. He was drinking, and a gun was available.
I see.
And, if guns hadn't have been available, he probably wouldn't, because his friends thought that, it was sort of an impulse, and there's a gun, and, I'm depressed and drunk, and I don't see a way forward.
Mm-hmm.
That was a hard period for a lot of vert skaters.
I had gone through the suicide death of my best friend and my band partner in Chance the Gardener. And I was a wreck, and there was other things happening too that were bad. But I had quit my job to go on tour with Chance the Gardener. We had a toilet tour that we were getting ready to go out and do, and then behind that we were going to go out with Better Than Ezra. They asked us to tour with them. And I was really looking forward to that because they were playing like 3,000 seat venues. They liked our record. They said, well, we can't pay you much, but you can use our sound system, and and that was perfect for us because we had tour support. We could just tag along in the van and then use the whole sound man and that whole sound. I mean, it was absolutely perfect. And we were going to leave on the first tour on a Monday, and then Friday we had a meeting, and Stu said, "I'm not going." And I had quit my job, you know.
Uh-huh.
And not long after that, he just vanished. He left town, went to Oakland, and I think with him it was late onset paranoid schizophrenia.
Interesting.
That it was about the right time. That comes on in the late 20s, and there was mental illness in the family. So I'm convinced that's what the diagnosis was.
Interesting.
And I think he had been on meds, and he had gone off meds. So I was recovering from that and not in a good state. And Jeff Clint, I think, called me and said that Jeff Phillips had committed suicide. And I was in the middle of dealing with Stu's death and having quit my job, and the band ended. And I heard Jeff Clint tell me that, but I didn't accept it. It was one of the only times I've experienced a kind of just blocking something out because it's too hard to take. And I blocked it out. No. I just said, no, that didn't happen. And then I grabbed a Rolling Stone. I was out of work, so I was downtown walking around Davis, and I grabbed a Rolling Stone and opened it up, and the center spread was Jeff Phillips. And Rolling Stone did a featured article called "Skate Till You Die." And it was, as I recall, and I tracked it down on the internet recently. As I recall, it was a female journalist. I could be wrong. And I didn't recognize the name, but it was a wonderfully, beautifully written article.
Good. Okay.
And she really understood Jeff, and I think did a really, really, really nice piece on it. But all he had was skating. I mean, I was glad that I never, that sort of just, focus was never really a problem for me because I was interested in a lot of different things. But I wonder about the people. I mean, I think Olympic athletes have that sort of problem.
Oh, sure.